Everyone froze in shock. The silence was absolute. The conversations died, and the whiskey glasses stopped midair. I could feel every pair of eyes fixed on my face, on the purple swelling around my left eye, on the bruise that no amount of concealer could possibly hide. Then my son, Marcus, stepped forward and declared in a clear, proud voice. It was my wife who taught him his place, so he'd learn some respect. Serena, my daughter-in-law, straightened her shoulders beside him, a satisfied, small, venomous smile glittering on her lips. She looked at me like I was trash, like I was nothing. That's when my brother Ray approached Marcus, and what he said changed everything. That day, I lost my son, but I also found myself again. Let me tell you how I arrived at that moment of public humiliation, how I went from being a beloved father to becoming an enemy in my own home. Because this didn't begin with physical aggression. It started much earlier, with soft words and false smiles, with poison disguised as concern. 3 years ago, when my wife, Estelle, passed away, the world lost its color. Estelle, my partner of 42 years, left quietly on a cold winter morning, a sudden heart attack. I didn't even have time to say goodbye. One morning, she was next to me, warm under the covers, and the next, she was cold, gone forever. The grief was so intense, I thought I would drown in it. I cried in the shower so Marcus wouldn't hear me. I cried while I cooked. I cried looking at the empty side of the bed. But I had to be strong. Marcus needed me. He had lost his mother too. The house where we lived was our fortress, a beautiful property in Atlanta, Georgia, that Estelle and I had bought when Marcus was just a boy. 2 stories, a spacious backyard, large windows that let in the morning sun. Estelle had left it in my name. It's yours, Clay, she had told me months before she died, as if she had sensed something. Don't let anyone take away what we built together. We signed the papers, and everything was in order. I was the legal owner of that house, of all the memories in every corner, where I had raised my son. Marcus lived with me. After his mother's death, he decided to stay. I'm not going to leave you alone, Dad, he'd tell me over our strong black coffee at breakfast. He worked for a construction firm, Rebuild Dynamics, LLC. He left early, came home tired, but always had a smile for me. We ate dinner together, watched movies on Sundays, and talked about Estelle, about memories, about how much we missed her. The pain was easier to bear when shared. I cooked his favorite Southern classics: slow-smoked brisket, rich collard greens, hand-patted cornbread, just the way he liked them. He fixed things that broke in the house. We were a team. We were family. I thought it would be like that forever. Then came Serena. He met her at a business fair. She was an events coordinator. Sleek, self-assured, with that kind of polished beauty that seemed lifted straight from a fashion magazine. Dark hair, always perfectly styled. Impeccable nails, designer clothes. The first time he brought her home, she gave me a blindingly white, toothed smile and a hug that felt calculated, measured to the millimeter. "Mr. Jefferson?" she said in a sweet voice. "Marcus talks about you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet the man who raised such a wonderful son." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think she was sincere. I prepared a special dinner that night, chicken in a deep red mole sauce with the spices Marcus loved. Fresh salad, hot, freshly made cornbread. Serena ate little, pushing the food around her plate while commenting on carbs and calories. "I hardly ever eat cornbread," she said. looking at the patties with something akin to disdain. "We need to take care of ourselves, don't you think?" She smiled. But there was something sharp in that smile, something that made me feel uneasy. Over the next few months, Serena became part of our lives. She came for dinner 2 or 3 times a week, always polite, always smiling. But I started noticing small things. The way she looked at the house, as if she were evaluating it. Comments that seemed innocent, but carried hidden barbs. "This living room is so classic," she'd say, touching the furniture Estelle and I had chosen together. "I bet these pieces are 30 years old, right? There are such modern styles now." Or when she saw the family photos on the wall. "It's nice that you keep so many memories of the past, Clarence. Although sometimes holding on so tightly to yesterday doesn't leave room for tomorrow." Marcus didn't notice a thing. He was blinded by love. When I tried to mention something, he defended her, but with a condescending smile. "Dad, Serena just wants to help. She's used to organizing spaces. It's her job." I stayed quiet. I didn't want to be that father-in-law, that bitter man who wouldn't accept his son's partner. So I swallowed my doubts and smiled. They got married 6 months later. A small but elegant ceremony at the Atlanta Botanical Garden. Serena organized everything. I barely participated. "Don't worry, Mr. Jefferson," she'd tell me. "I'll take care of everything. You just relax and enjoy." On their wedding day, watching them exchange vows, I felt a knot in my stomach. Estelle was missing. She would have known what to say. She would have seen what I was beginning to see. After the honeymoon, Serena moved in. "It's temporary, Dad," Marcus explained. "Just until we find our own place." I accepted it. He was my son. I wouldn't deny him a roof over his head. But temporary turned into 1 month, then 2, then 6. And with each passing day, Serena occupied more space. She reorganized the kitchen, changed the dining room curtains, moved the furniture in the living room. "We need to feel at home, Clarence," she would say, with that soft smile. And I let her do it, because I didn't want problems. But then, the gatherings began. Serena invited friends, colleagues, people I didn't know. They filled the living room, laughing loudly, drinking late. And when I appeared, the atmosphere changed. Conversations stopped. They looked at me as if I were an intruder in my own house. "Dad, don't you want to go rest?" Marcus would ask softly. "We'll take care of everything down here." And I would go up to my room, feeling displaced, invisible, a burden. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own house? Have you ever watched someone slowly take over your space and been unable to stop them? I was living a silent nightmare, and I didn't even know it. Months passed, and the house ceased to be mine. Not legally, not on paper, but in every detail that mattered. Serena redecorated without asking permission. One day, I came home, and the cream-colored curtains Estelle and I had chosen were gone. In their place hung minimalist gray drapes that made the room feel cold, impersonal. "The old ones were very dated, Clarence," Serena explained, while folding the old curtains into a box. "These are more elegant, more current. You'll get used to it." But I didn't want to get used to it. I wanted my curtains. I wanted my house. I wanted someone to ask me before changing the things Estelle and I had built together. Marcus worked longer and longer hours, leaving before dawn and returning after 9 o'clock at night. We ate separately, me in the kitchen, them in the dining room with the door closed. I could hear their laughter, their private conversations. But I was no longer a part of it. I was no longer a part of my son's life. When I tried to talk to him, he was always tired, distracted, looking at his phone. "We'll talk later, Dad," he'd say without lifting his eyes. "I have some emails to check right now." And I was left with the words stuck in my throat. Serena started making more direct comments. She no longer bothered to disguise her barbs with sweetness. One afternoon, while I was cooking, she walked into the kitchen and wrinkled her nose. "Clarence, you always cook with so much lard. The smell gets all over the house," she said, leaving an aromatic candle on the table. "Use this afterward, please. My friends are coming over tomorrow and I don't want it to smell like old man food." Old man food. That's what she called the stew I was preparing. The very recipe Marcus had loved all his life. I started cooking less, retreating more into my room. The house was hostile. Every space bore Serena's mark. Her magazines on the coffee table, her shoes at the entrance, her expensive perfume floating in the air. I was becoming invisible, a ghost in my own home. And the worst part was that Marcus didn't see it, or didn't want to see it. One night, I went downstairs for water. It was past 11 o'clock. I thought everyone was asleep, but I heard voices in the study. The door was slightly ajar. I approached without making a sound. Serena was talking to Marcus, her voice low but intense. "We can't keep going like this, sweetheart. This house is too big for 3 people, and your dad is getting old. Wouldn't it be better if he moved somewhere smaller? Easier for him to manage? There are some lovely senior living communities with people his age. He'd have company. He'd be happy." My heart stopped. Marcus remained silent for a moment that seemed eternal. Then he sighed. "I don't know, Serena. He's my dad. I can't just kick him out." Serena let out a soft laugh. "It's not about kicking him out, my love. It's about all of us having our space. Think about it. We could have this whole house just for us. Start our family. Don't you want that?" I backed away before I heard Marcus's answer. I went up the stairs with trembling legs, locked myself in my room, and cried silently, my face buried in the pillow, so they wouldn't hear me. They wanted to get rid of me. They wanted my house, the house Estelle had left me, the house where I had raised my son. And Marcus was considering it. My own son was thinking about discarding me, like an old piece of furniture that no longer matched the new decor. The following days were tense. I couldn't look at Serena without feeling sick. She knew. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she smiled at me with that quiet superiority. She knew I had heard, and she didn't care. In fact, she seemed to enjoy it. She started becoming more territorial. "Clarence, could you knock before entering the living room? Sometimes we're having private conversations." "Oh, Clarence, it's better not to use the washing machine after 7. The noise bothers us when we're watching TV. The house had rules now. Rules I hadn't made. Rules that turned me into a tolerated guest." I tried to talk to Marcus. One morning I caught him before he left for work. "Son, I need to talk to you." He was checking his briefcase, rushed as always. "What is it, Dad?" I took a deep breath. "I feel like Serena and I don't get along. I feel like I'm not welcome here anymore." Marcus frowned. "Dad, don't say that. This is your house." But he said it automatically, without conviction, like someone repeating a memorized phrase. "Then why do I feel like I have to ask permission for everything? Why do I feel like I'm in the way?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, uncomfortable. "It's just that Serena is used to having her space. It's nothing personal. Just try to be more flexible. For me, please." And he left. He left me standing there, without the words of defense that never came. That night, Serena hosted another dinner. 6 people arrived. They occupied the dining room, noisy and cheerful. I was in the kitchen making tea when one of Serena's friends came in. She looked at me in surprise. "Oh, hello. I didn't know anyone else was here." Before I could answer, Serena appeared behind her. "Oh, that's Clarence, Marcus's dad. He lives here." The way she said it. He lives here. As if I were a tenant. As if it weren't my house. The friend nodded politely, and they left. I listened to the laughter in the dining room. I stayed in my own kitchen, feeling small, humiliated, invisible. Weeks passed. Serena started talking about remodeling. "This kitchen is so dated," she'd tell Marcus while I was right there, as if I couldn't hear her. "We should modernize it. Change the cabinets, put an island in the middle. Do you know how much a property is revalued with a remodeled kitchen? We could invest about $60,000 and recoup double that if we ever sell." "Sell?" she said. "Sell?" As if the house were hers. As if I didn't exist. Then came my birthday. 70 years. Marcus suggested throwing a party. "You deserve to celebrate, Dad," he told me with a smile that reminded me of the boy he used to be. For a moment, I felt hope. Maybe things could get better. Maybe I still mattered. Serena took charge of everything. She invited relatives, friends, neighbors. She decorated the living room with silver balloons and garlands. She prepared a table with elegant snacks. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But I felt a strange tension in the air. Something wasn't right. The morning of my birthday, I went downstairs for coffee. Serena was in the kitchen talking on the phone. When she saw me, she abruptly cut the call. "Morning, Clarence." Her tone was cold. I poured myself coffee in silence. She stood there, watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Do you know what day it is?" I tried to break the ice. "Yes, your birthday." Silence. "And also the day you should make important decisions about your future." My hand stopped with the cup halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" Serena crossed her arms. "Marcus and I have been talking. We need this house, Clarence. We want to start a family. We need space, privacy. And you? You need a place more appropriate for your age." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. "This is my house, Serena." She smiled. That small, poisoned smile. For now, I didn't know how to respond. I went to my room, my heart racing. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. What was happening? How had I reached this point? I looked at the photos on my nightstand. Estelle and me on our wedding day, baby Marcus, our happy family. And now, everything was falling apart. That afternoon, I got ready for my own party, feeling an immense weight on my chest. I put on the tan linen suit I'd bought, especially for the occasion. I carefully applied concealer, trying to hide the dark circles, the marks of insomnia and distress. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw a tired man, a man who was losing the battle in his own home. I took a deep breath. I had to go downstairs. The guests would arrive soon. I couldn't hide in my room on my birthday. I walked down the stairs slowly. The living room was transformed. Serena had done an impeccable job. Everything looked elegant, sophisticated, perfect. But it didn't look like my party. It looked like someone else's event. The first guests began to arrive. My brother Ray was one of the first. He hugged me tight and whispered in my ear, "Is everything okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a little tired." He looked at me with concern, but didn't press it. More people arrived. Cousins, longtime friends, neighbors. Everyone congratulated me, hugged me, wished me the best. For a moment, surrounded by people who loved me, I almost forgot the tension I was living with. Serena moved among the guests like the perfect hostess, smiling, charming, attentive. Marcus was by her side, proud of his wife. I watched them from a distance, feeling like I was watching someone else's life. It was my own party, and I was a spectator. Serena approached at one point with 2 glasses of whiskey in her hands, offering me one. "Happy birthday, Clarence," she said, with that smile that no longer fooled me. I took the glass out of politeness. "Thank you for organizing all of this." She tilted her head. "It's the least I could do. After all, this house will soon be completely ours, and we want to start on the right foot," she said in a low voice, just for me, while others chatted around us. It was a threat disguised as courtesy. I needed air. I excused myself and went up to the second floor. I entered the bathroom and closed the door. I leaned on the sink, breathing heavily. I had to calm down. I couldn't ruin my own party with a panic attack. I splashed cold water on my wrists. I breathed deeply. 1, 2, 3 times. When I felt more stable, I came out of the bathroom. And then I saw her. Serena was in the hallway, in front of my bedroom door. She had my jewelry box in her hands. My jewelry box, the small wooden chest where I kept the few pieces Estelle had given me over the years. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. Serena turned around without a trace of guilt on her face. "Just looking. These pieces are very old, aren't they? They must be worth something." I walked toward her and snatched the jewelry box from her hands. "You have no right to touch my things." She laughed, a soft, contemptuous laugh. "Calm down, Clarence. I wasn't going to steal them, although, with what they're worth, they could help pay for part of the kitchen remodel." I felt rage rising in my throat like lava. "Get out of my room." Serena took a step toward me. We were inches apart. "This isn't your room. This is our house. And the sooner you understand that, the better for everyone." Something broke inside me. All the accumulated humiliation, all the forced silence, all the invisibility I had endured for months suddenly exploded. This house is mine. It's in my name. Estelle left it to me, and you have no right to anything. The words came out with more force than I expected. Serena narrowed her eyes. Her face changed. The mask of politeness fell away, and I saw something ugly, something cruel underneath. "You are a ridiculous old man, clinging to the past. Marcus doesn't need you anymore. I am his family now, and we are going to get this house, with or without your permission." I should have stayed quiet. I should have gone downstairs and forgotten it. But I couldn't. Out! I pointed to the door. Serena looked at me with pure hatred. Then, without warning, she pushed me. It wasn't a hard shove, but I wasn't expecting it. I lost my balance. My hip hit the edge of the dresser. I tried to grab onto something, but my hand slipped. I fell to the side. My head hit the corner of the nightstand. The pain was instant, sharp, blinding. I reached for my eye and felt the dampness. Serena stood there, watching me on the floor. For a second, I saw something close to fear in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. "You tripped yourself," she said firmly. "You're old and clumsy. You fell." She looked at me for a few more seconds and then left the room, closing the door behind her. I stayed there on the floor, touching my eye, which was beginning to swell. The physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation, the helplessness, the horror of what had just happened. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. Finally, I got up and looked in the mirror. The skin around my eye was already turning purple. There was a small cut above my eyebrow. Blood left a thin line on my cheek. I cleaned it with a towel. I tried to cover it with makeup, but it was useless. The bruise was too obvious. Downstairs, I could hear music, laughter, conversations. My party was continuing as if nothing had happened, and I was up here, bleeding, hurt, broken.
I thought about not going down on, about staying locked away, waiting for everyone to leave. But then I heard Marcus's voice calling me.
Dad, come on. We're going to cut the cake. I couldn't hide. It was my birthday. I had to face what had happened. So, I walked it down slowly. Every step was an effort. When I reached the last one, the conversation stopped. One by one, the guests turned to look at me. I saw their faces change. Surprise, horror, confusion. Silence dropped like a slab of concrete. Marcus was the first to speak, but not with concern, not with alarm. He took a step forward and said in a clear, almost proud voice, it was my wife who taught him his place. So he'd learned some respect. The words fell like bombs in the middle of the silence. Serena straightened her shoulders beside him, satisfied and looking at me with those cold, victorious eyes. The guests were motionless. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. And I stood there in front of everyone, humiliated in the most horrible way I could imagine. My own son, justifying the violence against me. My own son choosing her over me. Then Ray pushed through the crowd. His face was red with fury. He walked straight up to Marcus and looked at him with an intensity I had never seen. What kind of man lets his wife attack his own father and then celebrates it in front of everyone? He said in a low voice, but charged with contempt. Marcus went pale. Uncle, it's not what it looks like. Ray interrupted him. Your mother would be ashamed of you. The silence that followed was devastating. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Serena tried to grab his arm, but Ray glared at her. And you? You came into this family with lies? Everyone can see it now. Some guests started murmuring. Others looked at the floor, uncomfortable. A cousin came up to me. Clarence, are you okay? Do you need us to call someone? I shook my head. Tears were starting to blur my vision, but I wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Ray gently took my arm. Come on upstairs. I'll clean up that cut. But before I could move, Serena spoke. Her voice was sharp, desperate. He provoked me. He insulted me. I was just defending myself. Ray turned back to her. Liar. The word hung in the air. Marcus finally reacted. He stepped between Ray and Serena, protecting her as if she were the victim. Uncle, that's enough. You don't know what happened. Ray let out a bitter laugh. I don't know. I see your father with a black eye, and you defending the person who attacked him. I know exactly what happened here. More guests began to leave. Some said goodbye with pity. Others just left without a word. The party was falling apart. My birthday had turned into a public nightmare. An older lady, a friend of my late wife, approached before leaving. She took my hand and whispered, Estelle never would have allowed this. Take care of yourself, Clarence. And she left, leaving those words etched in my heart. Ray led me to the kitchen and closed the door. He sat me in a chair and began to examine my eye carefully. This needs ice, he said, opening the freezer. He wrapped ice cubes in a clean towel and pressed it gently against my face. The cold made me tremble, but the pain began to calm down a little. How did it happen? Ray asked. his voice controlled, though I could see the contained fury in his eyes. I told him everything. The jewelry box, the argument, the shove, the fall. As I spoke, I watched his jaw clench harder and harder. "This cannot continue," he said when I finished. "This house is yours, legally yours. She has no right to anything." I wiped away the tears that had begun to fall without permission. But Marcus, he's on her side. He didn't even ask if I was okay. He just defended her. Ray clenched his fists. Marcus is blind, but he will wake up. And when he wakes up, he's going to regret it. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that my son would return to the man I had raised. But something inside me had broken that night, something that might never be repaired. The kitchen door burst open. Marcus walked in with Serena close behind him. "Dad, we need to talk," he said in a serious tone. Ray stood up, stepping between us. "Don't come near him." Marcus looked at him with frustration. "He's my dad. I have the right to talk to him." Ray didn't move. "You lost that right when you let your wife attack him and humiliated him in front of everyone." Serena intervened, her voice sharp and defensive. "It was an accident. He tripped. I didn't touch him." I looked at her. She was lying blatantly, without a trace of remorse on her face. "You pushed me," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You pushed me and left me lying on the floor, like I was trash." Serena shook her head, false tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Marcus, he's lying. He's trying to separate us. He's jealous of what we have." It was incredible. She was reversing the roles, turning herself into the victim. And Marcus looked at her with concern, as if he genuinely believed she was the one who needed protection. "Clarence has always been difficult," Serena continued, her voice breaking. "From the day he met me, he treated me badly. He made me feel like I didn't belong here. I just want peace. I want us to be a family." Every word was a stab. She was constructing a narrative where I was the villain, and she the innocent victim. And Marcus was buying the whole story. "Dad," he said, turning to me, maybe you need to rest. You're stressed. Confused." Confused? He was calling me confused. As if I were crazy. As if I had made the whole thing up. Ray exploded. "Are you listening to yourself, Marcus? Your dad has a black eye, and you're trying to convince him that he's confused?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to believe. I wasn't there. I didn't see what happened." Serena clung to his arm, sobbing against his shoulder. "He hates me, Marcus. He never accepted me. Now, he's making things up. So you'll kick me out of the house." It was a masterful performance, and it was working. I got up from the chair. The ice fell to the floor. I looked my son directly in the eyes. "Marcus, I am your father. I raised you alone after your mother died. I gave you everything I had. I loved you unconditionally. And now you are calling me a liar to protect a woman who attacked me." My voice broke on the last word. Marcus looked away. He couldn't hold my gaze. And in that moment, I knew I had lost him. Maybe not forever, but in that instant, Serena had won. "I want you to leave," I said with all the dignity I could muster. "This is my house. I want you to pack your bags and go." Serena instantly stopped crying. Her face hardened. "This house is too big for you alone. You need help. You need supervision." The word supervision sounded like venom. Ray stepped forward. "The only one who needs to leave is you. Clarence is the legal owner of this property. You can leave voluntarily, or we can call the police and have you removed by force." Marcus finally spoke, and his words crushed me. "We're not leaving. This house should be mine. Mom built it for our family, for me. It's not fair. that Dad has everything when I need to start my own family. There was the truth. He didn't care about my well-being. He didn't care that I had been attacked. He cared about the house, the property, the money. Serena had planted this idea in his head, and now he was repeating it as if it were his own. Your mother left me this house because she trusted me to take care of it, I said, my voice trembling. Because she knew it was my sanctuary, my security. And you want to take it from me. Marcus didn't respond. Serena, however, did. You need to be realistic, Clarence. You're old. How many more years are you going to live here? 10? Maybe 15, if you're lucky. We're young. We need this space. We can take care of you somewhere else, a more appropriate place. Every word was calculated, cold, ruthless. Ray pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police right now. Marcus turned pale. Uncle, don't do that. I'm your nephew. Ray looked at him with deep disappointment. And she is my sister. And you are destroying her for a woman who only wants your money. Serena laughed. His money? Marcus doesn't have any money. Everything is in his name. She pointed at me with contempt. That's why we're here. That's why he needs to understand that he's not alone in this anymore. The kitchen door opened again. It was attorney Michael Reed, the family lawyer. He had been a close friend of Estelle's and had drafted her will. Apparently, someone had called him during the chaos of the party. He walked in with a folder in his hand, viewing the scene with seriousness. Good evening. I heard there were issues here. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere. Serena tensed. Marcus looked confused. Ray sighed with relief. Mike, I'm glad you're here, Ray said. We need to clarify some things about the ownership of this house. The lawyer nodded, opened the folder, and pulled out an envelope. I happened to bring the documents. I thought we might need them. He looked at Marcus and Serena. I believe there is some confusion about the legal status of this property. Rita straightened her back, trying to regain her composure. There is no confusion. Everyone knows the house is in Clarence's name, but Marcus is his son, the sole heir. Eventually, it will be his. Michael looked at her with a neutral expression, but his eyes were sharp. That's not exactly correct. He opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. Estelle's will contains certain specific clauses. My heart began to beat faster. Clauses? Estelle had never mentioned anything like that. The lawyer continued. The house was left to Clarence with absolute ownership, but there is a protective clause. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? Michael looked at me briefly, as if asking permission. I nodded. I needed to know. Everyone needed to know. It means that if Clarence is pressured, coerced, or forced to leave the property by any family member, the house does not pass into the hands of the direct heirs. Instead, it will be donated entirely to a charity specified in the will, the Living Hope Charity. The silence that followed was absolute. Serena went pale. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The lawyer's words hung in the air like a sentence. Serena was the first to react. That's ridiculous. That can't be legal. Michael looked at her with professional calm. It is perfectly legal. Mrs. Jefferson made her intentions very clear. She wanted to protect her husband from any kind of family pressure after her death. He pulled out another document from the folder. Here is the exact clause. If Clarence is forced to sell, donate, or abandon the property, it passes to the Living Hope Charity. Marcus would inherit absolutely nothing. Marcus slumped into a chair. His face had lost all color. Mom did this? It wasn't a question. It was an affirmation filled with shock. Michael nodded. Your mother was a wise woman? She had seen many cases of families destroyed by inheritance. She wanted to ensure Clarence had a safe place until the end of his days, without pressure, without manipulation. He looked directly at Serena. As he said the last word, Ray turned to Serena with contempt. So, all this time, he said, looking at Serena with disdain. All this planning to get my brother out of his house, all the humiliations, the contempt, the shove today, it was all for nothing, because you were never going to get this house. Serena backed away as if she had been slapped. I didn't have any plan, but her voice sounded hollow. We all knew the truth. Now everything was clear. The remodeling she wanted to do, the comments about the property's value, the conversations I had overheard about senior living communities. It had all been in a calculated strategy to get me out of my own house. Marcus slowly stood up. He looked at me. He truly looked at me for the first time in months. I saw confusion in his eyes. I saw shame starting to appear. Dad, I didn't know anything about this clause. I looked at him, feeling a deep ache in my chest. But you knew I felt bad. You knew I felt displaced in my own home, and you did nothing. You chose to believe her instead of me. Marcus opened his mouth to reply, but the words wouldn't come out. What could he say? It was all true, and all of it. Serena changed tactics. Her eyes filled with tears again. Marcus, honey, you have to believe me. I didn't know anything about this. I just wanted us to have our own space. I wanted us to be happy. She clung to his arm desperately. Don't leave me, please. We're in this together. But Marcus freed himself from her embrace. Something had changed in his expression. The fog was beginning to lift. How long have you been planning this? He asked, his voice dangerously low. Serena shook her head. I didn't plan anything. You're misunderstanding everything. Michael intervened again. There's one more thing you need to know. He pulled out another document. 3 weeks ago, someone requested a professional appraisal of this property. The appraiser contacted the office because he noticed the name on the request did not match the registered owner. He looked at Serena. The request was made by Serena Vance. She paid $6,000 for a full evaluation of the house, including projections of future value, if certain renovations were made. The silence was deafening. Marcus looked at his wife as if she were a stranger. Also, Michael continued, we received an inquiry 2 weeks ago asking about the legal processes for declaring an elderly person incapable of managing their own assets. My heart stopped. Incapable. They had tried to have me declared incompetent. The inquiry came from the same phone number registered to Serena Vance. Michael closed the folder. We did not proceed with any information, of course, but it was recorded. Serena backed up against the wall. That's a lie. They're making all this up to turn him against me. Marcus turned to her, fury in his eyes. You tried to declare my dad incompetent. You tried to take his house using the law. Serena was sobbing now, but they were tears of panic, not sadness. I was just researching options. I wasn't going to do anything. I just wanted Ian to know it was possible. Marcus ran his hands over his face. My God, what have I done? What have you turned me into? He looked at her with horror, as if he could finally see what we had all seen from the beginning. Ray put a hand on my shoulder. Clarence, do you want them to leave tonight? I looked at Marcus, my son, the boy I had raised, the man he had become, and whom I no longer recognized. Part of me wanted to yell at him, wanted to kick him out of the house immediately. But another part, the part that had been a father for so long, still felt love for him. A wounded, broken love. But love nonetheless. Marcus can stay tonight, I said in a tired voice. But she leaves now. Serena's eyes widened in shock. You can't do that. I'm his wife. I looked at her directly. This is my house, and I want you out of it. Marcus did not defend her. This time, he stayed silent, looking at the floor. Reality had finally hit him. Michael spoke in a professional tone. Mrs. Vance, I suggest you pack your personal belongings and leave. If you refuse, I can call the authorities. Serena looked at all of us with pure hatred. There were no tears now, only rage. This isn't over, she said in a venomous voice. I have rights. I'm Marcus's wife. This house will eventually be mine too. Ray took a step toward her. Didn't you hear anything the lawyer said? This house will never be yours. Never. And if you keep pushing, if you keep trying to force Clarence out, the house will go to charity. And neither you nor Marcus will see a penny. Serena clenched her teeth. She looked at Marcus one last time. Are you going to let them throw me out like this? Are you going to choose him over me? Marcus lifted his eyes. They were red. I think you made your choice a long time ago. You chose this house instead of me, instead of us. His voice sounded broken. Serena let out a bitter laugh. You're an idiot. A weak idiot, who's never going to leave his daddy's apron strings. She grabbed the purse she had left in the kitchen and stormed out, slamming the door. The sound echoed throughout the house. We stayed in silence for a long moment. Marcus remained standing, motionless, as if he couldn't process what had just happened. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible. Dad, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Tears began to fall down his cheeks. I don't know how I let things get this far. I don't know when I stopped seeing you. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to say everything was okay, but I couldn't, because it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. You shoved me, Marcus. Your wife shoved me and left me bleeding on the floor. And you defended her in front of everyone on my birthday. My voice cracked. Do you have any idea how that felt? Marcus covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. I know, and I have no excuse. She said things to me. She made me feel like you were the problem, that you were the one who wouldn't accept her. And I believed her. My God, I believed it all. Michael put the documents back in the folder. Clarence, if you need a restraining order against Serena, I can help with that. I shook my head. I just wanted it all to end. I just wanted peace. For now, I just want her to be gone and not come back. The lawyer nodded. Understood. But if she contacts you, if she threatens you in any way, call me immediately. He handed me his card, although I already had his number. I'll remain available for anything. He said goodbye and left, leaving the three of us in the kitchen. Ray broke the silence. Marcus, you need to decide what you're going to do, but whatever it is, your dad cannot keep living with this tension. Marcus nodded without lifting his eyes. I know. I need to think. I need to process all of this. He looked at his left hand where his wedding ring was shining. He slowly took it off and placed it on the table. The sound of the metal against the wood sounded final, definitive. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in my room, the door locked. For the first time in years, my eye was throbbing. The swelling had worsened, and the bruise was spreading down my cheek. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the scene repeating. The shove, the fall. Serena's face looking at me on the floor without remorse. And worse, I saw Marcus defending her in front of everyone. Those words echoed in my head over and over. It was my wife who taught him his place. My own son. How had it come to this point? I heard movement in the house throughout the night. Steps going back and forth. Doors opening and closing. Muffled voices. I didn't know if Marcus was still there or if he had left with Serena. Part of me wanted to know. Another part was afraid of the answer. Ray had stayed in the guest room. He had told me he wouldn't leave me alone that night, that he would stay until he was sure I was okay. His presence gave me some comfort, but it couldn't erase the ache I felt in my chest, an ache that had nothing to do with the physical attack. When dawn finally broke, I went downstairs carefully. The house was silent. The remnants of the party were everywhere. Deflated balloons on the floor, abandoned glasses on the tables, plates with half-eaten food. Everything looked sad under the gray morning light. I approached the living room window. Marcus's car was still in the driveway. He was still here. I didn't know if that relieved me or distressed me more. Ray appeared in the kitchen doorway, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He offered me one. "You didn't sleep a wink," he said. It wasn't a question. The dark circles under my eyes must have been obvious. I couldn't. I took the mug gratefully. The coffee was hot and strong, exactly what I needed. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Ray spoke. "Mike called me an hour ago. Serena tried to contact him last night. She wants to negotiate." I looked at him, surprised. "Negotiate what?" Ray grimaced. "She wants money. She says if we pay her a certain amount, she'll sign the divorce papers without problems and leave without making a scene. Otherwise, she threatens to take this to the media. She says she's going to tell them that the family is kicking her out on the street." I felt nauseous. Of course, she wanted money. It had always been about money. "How much is she asking for?" I asked. Ray hesitated. $60,000. The amount hit me like a punch. $60,000 was a huge sum, money I didn't have readily available in cash. I would have to sell investments, maybe take out a loan against the house. "I won't pay her a thing," I said firmly. She attacked me. She tried to manipulate my son to steal my house. She doesn't deserve a penny. Ray nodded in approval. "That's exactly what I told Mike. He agrees. He says her threats are empty. She has no legal case." We heard steps on the stairs. Marcus appeared. He looked terrible. Swollen eyes, wrinkled clothes, messy hair. He had probably slept as little as I had. He looked at both of us, cautiously. "Morning," he said in a hoarse voice. Ray didn't answer. I just nodded. Marcus poured himself coffee with trembling hands. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke. "Serena went to a hotel last night. She's been texting me all night." He paused. "She wants to talk, to fix things." Ray snorted. "Fix things after everything she did?" Marcus slumped into a chair. "I know it sounds ridiculous, but she's my wife. We were together for 2 years. I can't just end everything like this, Sav." I looked at him, incredulous. "Marcus, she tried to declare me incompetent. She investigated how to take my house. She attacked me and left me bleeding. And you want to fix things with her?" My voice rose. "What more does she have to do for you to open your eyes?" Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. "You're right. I know, but it's complicated. I loved her, or I thought I loved her. I don't know anything anymore." His voice broke. "Everything is so confusing. I thought I knew her. I thought we were happy. And now I find out that everything was a lie, that she only wanted the house, that I was just a means to get what she wanted." Tears started rolling down his cheeks again. "I feel so stupid, so used. Part of me wanted to console him. He was my son, after all. But the wound was too fresh, the pain too deep. Marcus, she didn't just use you. She destroyed me. She turned my house into a place where I felt like a stranger. She made me feel like I was in the way. She humiliated me in front of everyone, and you allowed it. You participated. Marcus nodded miserably. I know, and I'll never be able to forgive myself. Will you ever be able to forgive me? He lifted his eyes to mine. They were red and swollen. I didn't know what to answer. Could I forgive him? A father's love doesn't just disappear, but the trust was broken. The respect damaged. I don't know, Marcus. I need time. I need space. I need to heal. My voice sounded tired. And you need to decide what kind of man you want to be, because the man who defended his wife after she attacked his father is not the son I raised. Ray stood up. I'm going to be direct, Marcus. You need to leave this house for a while. Your dad needs peace. He needs to feel safe in his own home. And right now, your presence only brings him pain. Marcus went pale. You want me to leave my childhood home? Ray didn't flinch. This is not your house. It is your dad's house. And after what happened yesterday, he has every right to ask you to leave. Marcus looked at me, hoping I would contradict Ray, expecting me to say he could stay, but I didn't. Ray was right. I needed him to leave. I needed to breathe without constant tension. I needed my space. I think it's for the best, I finally said. And for now, until things calm down. Marcus closed his eyes as if he had been struck. Okay, he whispered. I understand. He stood up slowly. I'm going to pack some things. I watched him go up the stairs. His shoulders were slumped. He looked defeated. And although part of me felt compassion, the other part, the wounded and betrayed part, only felt relief that he was going. Ray put his hand on mine. You did the right thing. I nodded, though I wasn't sure of anything. Nothing felt right at that moment. Half an hour later, Marcus came downstairs with 2 suitcases. He stopped at the entrance to the living room, where I was still sitting. I'm going to stay at a friend's house for a few days, until I find an apartment. He paused. Dad, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For everything. I was a coward, a wicked son. I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. His voice cracked. I love you. I stood up and walked toward him. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I hugged him. It was a brief, tense hug, full of pain, but it was all I could offer him in that moment. I love you too, I whispered. That's why it hurts so much. We separated. Marcus picked up his suitcases and walked out the door. I heard his car start. I heard the sound fading down the street, and then silence filled the house. I dropped onto the sofa. The tears I had been holding back finally came out. I cried for my son, for the relationship we had lost, for the broken trust, for the pain of watching someone you love choose another person over you, again and again. Ray sat down next to me and held me while I cried. He didn't say anything. He just stayed there. Sometimes that's all you need. Someone to be present in your pain without trying to fix it. The following days passed in a strange haze. The house was silent in a way I had never experienced before. It wasn't the peaceful silence of being alone. It was the heavy silence of absence, of things left unsaid, of broken relationships. I looked in the mirror every morning and watched the bruise change color from dark purple to greenish yellow. It was a constant reminder of everything that had happened, a map of pain painted on my face. Ray stayed with me during that first week. He cooked when I didn't have the energy. He answered the phone when I didn't want to talk to anyone. Several people called after the party, some with genuine concern, others with morbid curiosity disguised as caring. "Is it true what happened, Clarence? Did your daughter-in-law really attack you?" Ray dispatched them all with short answers. "My brother needs privacy. Thank you for calling." And he would hang up without giving further explanation. Marcus sent texts every day. At first, they were long, filled with apologies, full of explanations about how Serena had manipulated him, how he now saw everything clearly, how he wanted to fix things. I read them, but didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. The words seemed hollow. The apologies came too late. The damage was already done. As the days passed, the messages became shorter, more desperate. "Dad, please talk to me. I just want to know if you're okay. I miss you." But I continued not to respond. I needed silence. I needed space to process everything I had lived through. One afternoon, Michael, the lawyer, came to visit me. He had news. "Serena has hired a lawyer," he said as we drank coffee in the living room. "She's initiating the divorce process." I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because it meant she would leave our lives. Sadness because it meant Marcus's marriage had ended in disaster. "What is she asking for?" I asked. Michael grimaced. "She's asking for compensation for the 2 years of marriage. She alleges she left her job to support Marcus, that she deserves a share of the marital assets." "But Marcus doesn't have assets," I said, confused. "Everything he has is in my name. The house, the investments, everything." Michael nodded. "Exactly. That's why her lawyer is trying to argue that Marcus is entitled to an accelerated inheritance, that you should give him a portion of your assets so he can meet his divorce obligations." I was speechless. Even now, even after everything, Serena was still trying to get to my money. But now she was using Marcus as a legal intermediary. "That's not going to work, is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. Michael firmly shook his head. "Absolutely not. There is no mandatory, accelerated inheritance. You decide what to do with your assets and when. No one can force you to give anything, much less under these circumstances." I breathed a sigh of relief. "Does Marcus know what she's doing?" Michael shrugged. "I'm not sure, but he should know. It's his divorce, after all." That night, I sent Marcus a text, the first one in 2 weeks. "Do you know that Serena is asking me to give you money to pay her off?" The reply came almost immediately. "What? No, I didn't know anything about this." Then another message. "Dad, I swear I didn't ask for anything. I don't want your money. I just want to fix things between us." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think Marcus wasn't part of that plan. But the trust was so damaged that I no longer knew what to believe. 2 more weeks passed. The bruise finally disappeared from my face, but the wound in my heart kept bleeding. Ray had to go back to his job, back to his life. He hugged me before leaving. "You're going to be okay," he told me. "You're stronger than you think." I nodded, though I didn't feel strong. I felt broken. I felt old. I felt alone. The house seemed even emptier after he left. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw a young woman I didn't recognize. I opened the door cautiously. "Mr. Jefferson?" she asked with a kind smile. I nodded. "I'm a private investigator. I was hired by your son's lawyer." My heart sped up. Marcus had hired an investigator? For what? "He was investigating Serena's financial past," the woman continued, "and I found information I think you should know." I invited her in. We sat in the living room. She opened a folder full of documents. "Serena has a history of relationships with older or widowed men with property. Her previous marriage ended when the husband's family discovered she was falsifying documents to transfer properties into her name. A chill ran down my spine. Does Marcus know this? The investigator nodded. He's the one who hired me. When he started to suspect, he wanted to know the truth. And the truth is, Serena is a professional con artist, she continued. She has gambling debts exceeding $10,000. The loan sharks are after her. That's why she needed this house so desperately. Everything started to make sense. The rush to marry, the insistence on moving into the house, the constant comments about the property's value, the inquiries about having me declared incompetent. It wasn't just ambition, it was desperation. She was running from debt and saw in Marcus, in me, in our house, an escape. Furthermore, the investigator said, she was in contact with real estate agents 3 months before the incident, on your birthday. She asked how long it would take to sell a property after the owner was declared unfit to make decisions. She had a detailed plan. I covered my mouth with my hand. The horror of what could have happened hit me like a wave. If I had been weaker, if I hadn't had Ray, if Michael hadn't arrived that night with the documents, Serena could have succeeded. She could have taken everything, my house, my dignity, my freedom. Marcus saw all this? I asked. The investigator nodded. Yes, and he was devastated. That's why he's proceeding with the divorce without any resistance. He wants her out of his life as quickly as possible. After the investigator left, I sat in silence for a long time, processing everything I had heard. Serena was worse than I had imagined. She wasn't just an ambitious or manipulative woman. She was a criminal, a predator who sought out vulnerable victims. And she almost succeeded. She almost destroyed my life. She almost destroyed my son. The phone rang. It was Marcus. I hesitated before answering. Finally, I did. "Hello, Dad." His voice sounded tired. "The investigator came to see you." "Yes," I confirmed. There was a long silence. "Now you understand why I feel so stupid, so used. I married a con artist and didn't see the signs." "She was good at what she did," I said gently. "She fooled us both." Marcus sighed. "But you saw it before I did. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. I treated you horribly to defend her. And now I have to live with that." His voice broke. "Are you ever going to be able to forgive me?" The question hung between us. I closed my eyes. I thought about all my pain, the humiliation, the betrayal. But I also thought about the good years, the child I had raised, the man he could become again if he learned from this. "I don't know if I can forgive you right now," I said honestly. "But I want to try. With time, with space, with therapy, maybe." I heard Marcus sigh, as if he had been holding his breath. "I want to try too, Dad. I want to get our relationship back. I want to be the son I deserve to be, the son Mom would have wanted me to be." Tears started rolling down my cheeks. "Your mother would be disappointed in what happened," I said. "But she would also believe in second chances. She always believed in them." We talked a little longer, cautiously, carefully, like two people who have known each other for a long time and are trying to recognize each other again. When we hung up, I felt strangely light. It wasn't complete forgiveness. It wasn't total reconciliation, but it was a beginning, a small crack in the wall that had been built between us. And for now, that was enough. The following months were a period of slow healing, like when you break a bone and have to wait patiently for it to mend, knowing that it might never be exactly as it was before. Marcus and I saw each other once a week, always in public places, a neighborhood coffee shop, a park, places where we both felt safe. The first meetings were awkward, long pauses between words, glances that weren't held, but slowly, very slowly, we began to find something similar to what we had lost. Marcus started therapy. He told me about it one afternoon while we were having coffee. The therapist says I was a victim of psychological abuse, he said, looking into his cup. Serena used classic manipulation techniques: isolation, gaslighting, gradual control. He paused. But that doesn't excuse me, Dad. I also made choices. I chose to believe her instead of you. I chose to ignore the signs, and that's something I have to carry. I nodded. He was right. Being a victim didn't erase the consequences of his actions. The divorce process was long and ugly. Serena fought for every point. She asked for compensation for invested time. She asked for emotional damages. She even asked for the clothes Marcus had given her. Her lawyer sent letter after letter, threat after threat. But Michael was relentless. He presented all the investigators' evidence, the documents about her debts, the records of her searches on how to declare people incompetent, her previous marriages, and patterns of fraud. Eventually, Serena's lawyer advised her to accept a quick and clean deal, or she would face criminal charges. One afternoon, Michael called me with news. Serena signed. The divorce is finalized. She receives nothing except her personal belongings, and there is a permanent restraining order. She cannot approach either Marcus or you within 200 yards. I felt an enormous weight lift from my shoulders. She was gone. She was truly gone. Where is she now? I asked. Michael hesitated. From what I understand, she left the state, likely running from creditors. But that's not our problem anymore. Marcus moved into a small apartment. He invited me to see it one Saturday. It was modest. One bedroom, basic furniture, nothing luxurious, but it looked clean, tidy. There were family photos on the walls, pictures of him as a child, photos with Estelle, photos with me from before everything fell apart. I'm starting over, he told me as he prepared coffee. No pretenses, no living beyond my means, just me, working, healing. He showed me his space with a certain shy pride. He was a different man from the one who had defended Serena that horrible night. But the real test came months later. It was a quiet Sunday. Marcus came to visit me at the house for the first time since he had left. He walked through the house slowly, touching the walls, looking at the photos, remembering. When we got to the kitchen, he stopped. It was here that everything exploded, he said softly. It was here that Uncle Ray told me Mom would be ashamed of me. His eyes filled with tears, and he was right. Mom would be ashamed. I am ashamed. We sat down at the table, the same table where we had shared thousands of meals. Dad, I need to tell you something, Marcus began, and I need you to listen to me until the end. I nodded. He took a deep breath. I've been working with the therapist on responsibility, on hiding behind excuses, and I realized something. He paused. Serena manipulated me, yes, but I let her do it because deep down, a part of me wanted this house. I wanted what Mom had built, and that made it easier for her to manipulate me. I stayed silent, letting him continue. When she suggested things about you, about you being difficult or old-fashioned. I didn't stop her. Why? Because a small, selfish part of me thought that if you left, the house would be mine. Not consciously, not actively, but the seed was there. Tears were rolling down his cheeks now. And that's why I'm as guilty as she is. Because my ambition, my greed, allowed all this to happen. It was painful to hear, but it was also necessary. It was the raw truth we had been avoiding. I appreciate your honesty, I finally said. And you're right, Serena couldn't have manipulated you if she hadn't found something in you to latch on to. Marcus nodded miserably. I know, and that's why I don't expect you to forgive me completely. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I just hope I can show you, with time, that I'm better than my worst decisions. I extended my hand across the table. He took it. Marcus, your mother and I raised you to be a good man, and good men make mistakes, big mistakes sometimes. But they also learn. They also grow. They also seek redemption. I squeezed his hand. I won't lie and say everything is fine, because it's not. But I am willing to walk with you while you work to be better. That's all I can offer you right now. Marcus sobbed. He got up and hugged me, a long hug, a hug that asked for forgiveness without words. I hugged him back. My boy, my broken son, trying to rebuild himself. I love you, Dad, he whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I cried with him for all we had lost, for all we could still recover, for the long road still ahead of us. After that day, something changed between us. It was as if we had finally cleaned the wound. It hurt, it burned, but now it could truly begin to heal. Marcus and I started seeing each other more often, but not too often. He didn't try to force things, but every week, every month, we rebuilt a little more of the bridge between us. We ate dinner together occasionally. He fixed things that broke in the house. I cooked his favorite dishes, just like before. One day, he told me he had met someone, a woman from his job, Hope, Esperanza. She's different from Serena in every way, he told me with a shy smile. She's honest, transparent. She has her own apartment, her own car, her own life. She doesn't need anything from me, except company. He paused. And this time, I'm going slow. This time, I'm paying attention to the signs. This time, I'm going to listen to you if you see something I don't. I smiled. I'd like to meet her. When you're ready. No pressure. The months turned into 1 year, then 2. The anniversary of that horrible birthday party came and went. This time, we celebrated only Marcus, Ray, and I. Something small, intimate, quiet. I blew out the candles on my cake, and Marcus hugged me. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. And this time, when he said those words, I felt them to be true, felt them to be real, felt them to be earned. The house remained mine, my sanctuary, my fortress. But it no longer felt like a prison of painful memories. It felt like a home again, a place where I had survived the storm, a place where I had found my strength when I thought I had none left. The old curtains Estelle had chosen were hung back in the windows. The furniture Serena had moved returned to its original places. Every corner became mine again. And although the pain of what had happened never completely disappeared, I learned something important. I learned that protecting myself didn't make me selfish. I learned that setting boundaries didn't make me cruel. I learned that sometimes the greatest love you can give is refusing to be destroyed. even if that means temporarily letting go of someone you love. Because only by staying whole can you be there when they are finally ready to rebuild. 2 years after that horrible night, I was in my backyard, pruning the roses Estelle had planted decades ago. The morning sun was warm on my back. The flowers had bloomed spectacularly this season. Red, yellow, peach, each one more beautiful than the last. There was something therapeutic about caring for those plants, about watching how something that seemed dead in winter could be reborn with such strength in spring. I heard a car stop in front of the house. It was Marcus, but he wasn't alone. A woman got out of the passenger side. Hope. I had met her 6 months earlier at a casual dinner. She was an elementary school teacher. She had a genuine smile and kind eyes, and most importantly, she treated Marcus as an equal. She didn't flatter him. She didn't manipulate him. She simply accompanied him in his life in a healthy, balanced way. "Hey, Dad," Marcus greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. Hope hugged me warmly. "Mr. Jefferson, the roses are gorgeous." I smiled. "Thank you, sweetie. Your help last month made a difference." We went inside the house. I had prepared lunch, beef stew, and fresh salad bun. We sat at the table, the same table where so many things had happened. But now, the bad memories were being replaced by new, better ones. We ate, talking about trivialities. Marcus's work, Hope's students, the flowers in the garden. It was normal. It was peaceful. It was what it should have always been. After lunch, Marcus and I went out to the porch, and we sat in the rocking chairs Estelle had placed there. "Dad, I need to tell you something," Marcus finally said. My heart raced for an instant. Marcus must have noticed because he quickly added, "It's good news, I promise." I breathed a sigh of relief. "All right, tell me." Marcus turned to look at me. "I asked Hope to marry me, and she said yes." My first instinct was joy, but immediately the fear came, the memories of Serena. Marcus read my expression. "I know what you're thinking, and I understand. After Serena, I was scared too. But Dad, Hope is different. Completely different," he continued. "She knows everything that happened. I told her about Serena, about how I treated you, about the divorce, everything. And she didn't run away. And there's something else," he added. "She insisted that we sign a prenuptial agreement. She doesn't want anything from my future assets if things don't work out." This surprised me and gave me hope. "When will the wedding be?" Marcus smiled. "We haven't set a date yet, but before planning anything, I needed your blessing. Hope said she wouldn't marry me if you weren't comfortable, that your opinion is important, that family is built on mutual respect." I felt tears pricking my eyes. "You have my blessing," I said in an emotional voice. "Hope is a good woman. I can see that." Marcus hugged me. "Thank you, Dad. This means everything to me." Then he added something else. "Dad, about this house, I want you to know that I will never, ever ask you to leave it. This is your house, your home, and it will be until the day you decide otherwise. Hope and I are going to build our own life in our own space. We don't need, and we don't want, this house." Those words released something in me that I didn't know I was holding on to. Hope came out to the porch. "Did you tell him?" she asked with a smile. Marcus nodded. She approached and sat on the floor in front of my rocking chair. "Mr. Jefferson, I know I have big shoes to fill. I want you to know that I deeply respect everything that happened. And if you ever feel that I am crossing a line, I hope you'll tell me directly, without fear." I looked into her eyes. They were sincere, clear. "Thank you for saying that, Hope, and please call me Clay." She smiled widely. "Only if you call me Sweetie when you feel ready." My heart squeezed. Sweetie. I had a daughter-in-law who used that title like a weapon. Could I open myself to having another? "I would like that," I finally said. "I would like that very much, Sweetie." Hope stood up and hugged me, a genuine hug with no calculations behind it. Marcus watched us with tears in his eyes. His family, fragmented and broken, was finding a way to heal. The following months were filled with wedding preparations. This time, I participated. Hope consulted me on every decision, not because she needed my approval, but because she genuinely valued my opinion. The wedding was held at a beautiful venue outside Atlanta, small, intimate, only close family and true friends. When Marcus and Hope exchanged vows, I cried, but they were different tears from those I had shed 2 years earlier. At the reception, Ray sat next to me. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about his question. "At peace," I finally replied. "For the first time in a long time, I feel peace." Ray smiled and raised his glass. "To peace, to healing, to endings that are really new beginnings." We toasted. Round us, people laughed, danced, celebrated. And I was there, a part of it, no longer invisible, no longer displaced. That night, back in my house, I sat in the living room. The house was silent, but it didn't feel empty. It felt full of good and bad memories, full of lessons learned, full of second chances. I looked at the photo of Estelle on the mantelpiece. "We did it," I said aloud. "I protected our son, even when it meant letting him go. And now, I think we're going to be okay." I stood up and walked through the house. Every room had a story. The kitchen, where Serena and I had our final confrontation. The living room, where I had been humiliated in front of everyone. But also the table, where Marcus and I had begun to rebuild our relationship. The porch, where I had received his request for a blessing. The yard, where Estelle's roses bloomed faithfully every year. This house had witnessed my worst moment, but also my greatest strength. Here, I had learned that protecting myself wasn't selfishness, that setting boundaries wasn't cruelty, and that sometimes the greatest love you can give is refusing to be destroyed. I went up to my room. I looked in the mirror, 72 years old. Lines on my face that told stories, eyes that had seen pain, but also redemption. "You survived," I told myself. "More than that, you won. Not with revenge, not with hatred, but by staying true to who you are." I lay down in my bed, in my house, in my sanctuary, that no one had been able to take from me. So sometimes protecting the past is saving the future. Estelle knew that when she wrote that clause in the will. She knew I would need protection. And she gave me the tools to defend myself, even after her death. Thanks to that, I could stand firm. I could say no. I could demand respect in my own home. And eventually, that firmness saved not only my home, but also my son. I closed my eyes, feeling gratitude. Gratitude for having survived, for having healed, for having a second chance with Marcus, for meeting Hope, for having Ray's unconditional support. Life had hit me hard. It had shown me the dark side of people I loved, but it had also shown me my own strength. A strength I didn't know I had until I desperately needed it. This house is still mine. These keys that Serena so coveted remain in my possession, not because they represent money or status, but because they represent something much more valuable: my autonomy, my right to exist in my own space without asking permission, my freedom to live without fear. And no one can ever take that from me. 1 year later, Marcus and Hope came to visit me on a Sunday afternoon. Hope was 6 months pregnant, radiant, carrying my future grandchild. We sat in the yard under the shade of the pecan tree that Estelle and I had planted when Marcus was small. The circle was completing itself. "What would you like the baby to call you, Grandpa Clay?" Hope asked tenderly. Grandpa Clay. A new title, a new opportunity, a new generation that would grow up knowing this story not as a tragedy, but as a testimony that it is possible to survive, heal, and love again. "Grandpa Clay is perfect," I said, feeling my heart fill with a happiness I hadn't felt in years. Marcus took my hand. "Dad, I want you to know that this child is going to grow up knowing his grandpa's story. He's going to know that strong men are not those who never fall, but those who stand back up. He's going to know that true love includes protecting yourself." Hope nodded. "And he's going to know that his great-grandma Estelle was a very wise woman who protected her family even after she was gone." I looked toward the house, toward the windows where the curtains Estelle had chosen were hanging again, toward the walls that had withstood all the storms. This house had been my battlefield, but also my victory. Here I had learned that dignity is not something others give you. It is something you choose to keep. I had learned that true respect is not begged for. It is earned by standing firm in your principles. I had learned that sometimes loving means letting go, and that sometimes letting go is the only way someone can truly return to you. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. In a few months, there would be a new baby in this family, a new life that would grow up with the blessing of being born into a family that had learned to value respect, honesty, and true love. Marcus stood up and hugged me. "Thank you, Dad, for not giving up, for not letting us be destroyed, for teaching me that it's possible to be both strong and loving at the same time." I hugged him back. My son, my man, my boy, who had grown through pain to become someone better. "Thank you," I told him, "for being willing to learn, to grow, to be better." Hope hugged both of us, and for a moment, we were what we should have always been. A family united, not by the tragedies we had endured, but by the love we had chosen to rebuild. That night, as the house fell silent again, I sat one last time in my living room, looking at the family photos that had survived everything. Estelle and me on our wedding day, baby Marcus. Happy moments that no Serena in the world could erase. And now, new photos. Marcus and Hope on their wedding day, moments of reconciliation, images of a future being built on solid foundations. I wondered, imagining all the people who might need to hear that it is possible to survive family betrayal, that it is possible to maintain dignity in the midst of chaos, that it is possible to love without allowing yourself to be destroyed. This story wasn't just mine. It belonged to all those who had ever felt invisible in their own home, to all those who had had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping their dignity, to all those who had learned that protecting yourself is not selfishness. It is survival. And from somewhere, I'm sure Estelle was smiling, knowing that her plan had worked, that her love had protected me even after she was gone, and that our family had found its way back home. I'm really glad you're here, and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, two of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.